Hi, this is Bob from Hobby Concepts, and today I've got this Tamiya 1850L box truck with obviously Coca-Cola livery that I'm going to do a full install of the SFR-1 from Beier with the new Flysky ST8 radio. Now, this radio just works spectacular with the SFR-1 or the USM3. If you're thinking of Beier electronics and you want a fantastic radio to use, this is really great. The only better radio I've seen is their PL18EV, which is very expensive, and this radio is in a price point where you can actually afford to have it and use it with your truck. It's easy to set up. I'm going to go step by step with how the radio comes, how to program the SFR, how to install it. I'll do some wiring, kind of show you a good overview of the whole system. So if you're interested in Beier electronics, watch this whole video. It's kind of a companion video. I've got one I did just a few days ago that showed putting this truck together. So you might want to go back and watch that too, and it'll give you really a good overview of the system. So here we go, SFR-1, ST8 radio. Let's get started. Okay, I've got a donor truck here. This is my Coca-Cola truck. It's a Mercedes 1850L, and it's basically ready to hook up the SFR-1. I've got the Flysky FS-ST8 radio, and this radio has already been modified by me and comes with a sheet on basically what channels go to what and how to set up the basics of the SFR, which I'm going to follow this just to show it off. And the radio already has got the self-centering left stick. Neat radio. It's 10 channels, but it has a really good selection of knobs and switches, so it'll be great for this SFR-1. And then I've got a piece of paper here talking about the light functions on this truck. So what I've got is I've got three groups of lighting. Group number one here is the lights from the front clip, and that would be the right turn signal, left turn signal, headlights, fog lights, and daytime running lights. And then I've got a group here from the body that would be the dash lights and interior lights. And then I've got a group here from the rear clip that would be the reverse lights, combined tail lights, which would be the brake lights and the tail lights, and then right and turn signal also mimicking this. So if I count these and I don't duplicate the right and left turn, that's 9 outputs I need, and I have 11 outputs if I duplicate these. So on an SFR-1 you get 8 outputs here and another 8 here, so I'm going to actually have to use 2 plugs. I've got my 10-core cables here. 2 plugs to hook up the wiring, which is pretty slick because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use 1 plug to hook up the wiring from the rear end of the truck and another to hook the wiring up from the front end and the body. And the way I hook that up, it's pretty slick because if you have, for example, say a King hauler and you're putting one of these in, you can use 1 plug for all the wires from the body and 1 from all the wires from the chassis. And that way, if you ever want to take the body off, you just pull a plug and boom, your body comes off. So this truck's a little different since everything's mounted here in the back, but it's just a neat thing to know when you're hooking these up for another truck. So what I'm going to go through is I'm going to go through how I identify the wiring, how I hook up the wiring, and then how I program the SFR-1 to operate. So kind of 3 different ways. First off, let's take a little bit better look at this truck. So I've got the SFR-1 here. You'll notice that my 2 leads to the motor are clipped. They're right here, and I'll have to solder those together. And I clipped them just to make it easier to wire through the chassis. And if you want to see how I ran some of that, you can watch the video on how I built this truck. I've got my 2 servos. Okay, my shift servo, my steering servo. And then I've got my speaker, which on this truck I've mounted right down here underneath in a little box. It's well hidden. Then I've got, as I mentioned, the light strings from the rear, the front, and the body. So the first thing I'm going to do is show, I used to try to jot down all the color codes and keep track of them, and I don't do that anymore. I actually found a better way, since I have had trucks with 20 different functions, and I don't have that many colors of wire. So what I do is just use black for my common, and common in the SFR-1 is always positive. So I'm going to have 3 black wires here, one from each group of wires. So those are going to be hooked together, and those are going to be my common, which on the Beier goes to the plus. And then the colored wires all mean something. And so I will have to figure out which wire goes to which function, and I'll show you the easy way to do that, because it's also testing at the same time, and then solder those to a plug. So I'm going to go through that step by step because I've got so much interest in these SFR-1 systems, and they really are a lot easier to hook up than you might think, especially with this radio, which is a fabulous radio for the SFR-1, and I'm going to use in all my SFR-1 trucks from now on, unless I'm using the PL18EV, which is the 18-channel radio, which I truly love, but is really expensive. This radio is 150 bucks, at least this time I'm making this video, and gives you 10 channels, great knobs, it feels good, and it just works great. So this is now my radio of choice for the SFR-1 or the USM-RC-3, unless you're using the 18-channel radio. So I'm going to get some things set up here, and then we'll kind of go through this. I'm going to start with the very basic hookups. So the first hookup, actually before I do anything, these 2 cables, since I'm using S-Bus, will not be needed. So I'm going to just put a tie wrap around those to keep them out of my way and remind me that I don't need them. Okay. So those are tied up out of the way. Now we've got our steering servo, okay, and the steering servo plugs into channel 1 on the receiver. So we'll plug that in here, channel 1 on the receiver, and the shift servo we're going to plug in on channel 5 on the receiver. Channel 5. Now, I actually probably will take this extension out and plug this in directly just to save me some wiring, but for the purposes of this I want to leave the receiver with a little extra space. I'm going to plug in the speaker. It plugs in right here to the loudspeaker port. Okay, and then our patch cable. Since we're using S-Bus, this hooks up with a patch cable. So the patch cable now goes from the spot marked servo over here, plug it in, servo, and it goes into the spot marked prop 6 on the SFR-1. So it goes right there. You'll notice that this is marked brown, red, orange. So brown goes that way, and on this one the minus is the downside. So that is basically all the plugins that are required to hook the radio to the SFR and the servos. So now what we have are the lights. Before I do the lights, I'm going to go ahead and load a program in this and at least test the sound. So you can see here I've got my Sound Teacher software up. I've got my USB programming cable plugged in. I've got power supplied. So I'm going to zoom into the Sound Teacher software and we'll kind of go through the basic setup. We're now zoomed in. So I'm going to go up here to File and I'm going to open a new project. Now this is my pre-done list of all the Beier sound programs that come. So we're going to take a truck and we're going to do this Mercedes-Benz Actos V6. Since we're doing this little truck, we've got a V6. So we're going to open it. And we're going to select it and then open it, and it'll load everything in. So that loads in our sounds. Now we've got some setup to do to make it work with the radio. Now I've got on this paper that comes with the ST8, we've got a basic setup. So we're going to go to the engine sound tab. Let's see. Engine sound right there. Okay, engine sound tab on the configuration tab, and then the engine sound. Right here, engine sound. We're going to uncheck fast switching, which is that one right there. Okay, on the S-Bus tab, we're now going to activate S-Bus at X26. Okay, and then that activates all these channels. Now, prop 1 is channel 3. Click the down arrow and click channel 3. Prop 2 is channel 1. Click this and click channel 1. Prop 9 is channel 9. Channel 9. And prop 10 is channel 10. What that does is set the basics of our radio setup, and then here on the general tab we're going to click direct volume control is channel 10 or prop 10. Okay, and what that does, this radio, I've already pre-programmed it with some of these features, so our volume control is now going to be set to here, and our engine sound on and off will be set to here. That would be prop 9 and prop 10. So now what we need to do is we need to go through our prop channels, and you can see that prop 2 is our steering. Prop 3, we're going to delete the assignments. Prop 4, delete the assignments. Prop 5, delete the assignments. Prop 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, in prop 9, we're going to go down, prop 9 channel tab, put the engine sound on and off in the lower left corner. Engine sound on and off, right up here. Okay. Okay. So that's our basic setup. And now what we can do is transfer that sets up, what that'll set up is engine sound on, engine sound off, volume control, and of course our shifting will be here, and our steering will be here, and our throttle will be here. So those are the basic functions that we've set up. No lighting yet, but that's pretty straightforward. We're going to transfer the project data to the SFR-1, and that's going to transfer everything that's on here over to the SFR-1. It's going to take a few minutes. You can see the files transferring. When I get that transferred, we'll come back and we'll just test out what we've got so far. So we set this up exactly like this paper told us to. Plugged in just like it told us. Set up this sound feature like we told it. And the radio was all pre-done, so everything should work. So I should be able to flip this down and have sound. And then my volume control knob is here. Okay. My throttle will work. And my steering will work. Let's see here, you can see the steering. So, and then shut off. So very basic, simple setup. We've got our shifting working. You can hear it work. Our steering, throttle, engine start, and sound volume. So that's all there is to it as far as setting up the basics of this radio. And now we get to do the lighting. And the lighting is really pretty straightforward. And I'm going to go through that step by step so that you can easily set up your truck in the future. So I'm going to reposition some cameras, and then we'll go through how to wire the lighting, and then how to get the radio to turn the lighting on and off. And we're going to set this truck so that every single lighting function can be operated individually. Now obviously the right and left turns will operate with the steering, but like the headlight, running light, dash light, dome lights, we're going to have a separate switch to work every single one of those features. And I think that'll be pretty cool and pretty straightforward. So we'll be back in a minute here. Back to the truck. What I've got to do here is connect my wires for my lights to my SFR-1. Now these are the light wires from the front bumper, so headlights and turn signals and that. And what's going to happen is I'm going to plug this cable in here, and this is going to give me 8 outputs. So what I have to do is solder these together, and I have to know which wire from here goes to which wire here. And as I mentioned earlier, I don't even know what color is what. So what I'm going to do is, I'm thinking this is about the right amount of wire sticking out. So I'm going to clip this off, and I'm going to strip these and tin them, which means to put a little solder on the wire. And then I'm going to take my wire from the SFR-1, I'm going to clip it, and I'll do the same thing. I'll pull these apart, strip them and tin them, and then I'll be ready to hook everything together, and then I'll show you how I do that. I've got my wires all cut, and you can see I've got them tinned, and I did the same thing with my 10-pin plug. So now I've got a power supply here set to 8 volts. You can also use a 9-volt battery for testing like this. And I'll take my positive lead and hook it to the black wire, because as I mentioned, the black wire I use for my common, and these are positive grounded. Then all I have to do is touch this to one of the wires to see what the output is. And you probably can't see it good, but let's see if I can turn it and get it on the camera. Yeah, you can probably see that. So the white wire here is my headlights. Okay? And I just test each one to see what they do and then hook them up. Now what I've done here is I've taken my lights that are in the front group and given them each an output. So the headlights I'm going to hook to output 1, which is the brown wire, and I use this little laminated wiring diagram card to tell which is which. So output 1 is the brown wire, and by the way, I made up a bunch of these and sell them if you don't have a laminator, but it's a handy thing to have. Output 2 is the red wire in this loom, and so on and so forth. So now all I have to do is solder this white wire that I tested to output 1, which is the brown one. And I'll use a little piece of shrink wrap over the top, and then I will just test each wire and solder it. And when I get down to the end, my black wire, which is my positive common, will go here to black. There's 2 positive common wires on this. It's the black one and the white one. So I'm going to go ahead and solder these up, and then we'll see how that looks. You can see I soldered the wires from the front grille, and now I've got the 3 wires from the cab. So I'll do the same thing. I'll hook to my common wire here with the positive, and then I'll see which one is the dash lights and which one's the interior lights. if I turn on the power supply. Okay, the dash lights is the red one, and the interior lights must be the white one, yeah? Yep. Okay, so what I've done, same thing on my code card. Dash lights I'm going to hook to output 6. Interior lights are output 7. On my quick reference card, those are blue and purple. And then I've got an additional common wire, and this has 2 common wires, the white one and the black one. So you can see I hooked my one common wire to the black, and the common wire for these I'll hook to the white. That'll leave me with 1 spare wire on this plug. So I'll solder those up. So there's my harness all done for the front and the cab. Now I've got these lights coming in from the rear bumper. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to test each wire, figure out what they are. And so the red wire is left turn, the blue wire is tail lights, the green wire is right turn, and the yellow wire then must be backup lights. Okay, so same thing, reverse lights, output 9. Output 9 is the brown wire on the second plug-in. So I prepped a second plug-in, and that will solder to these. So we just said that our reverse lights were what? Blue, is that right? No, yellow. Yellow? Yeah, the reverse lights are yellow. So that means I need to solder the yellow wire to output 1, which is brown. So I'll do the same thing as I've done in the back. Got a little piece of shrink wrap here. These are already tinned. I've already put some solder on them, so it's just a matter of sticking them together, putting the shrink wrap on it, and shrinking that down. So I'll go ahead and hook up the rest of these, and then we'll come back and we'll do the programming to work the lights. Now that I've got these all wired up, I can plug them in, and they just plug in like that. And then we're ready to go. Everything's hooked up right now except my motor wires, which is fine because I don't want the truck to move around anyway. So now we'll get to work and we'll program the lights. We'll start with the front end. As we get this set for outputs, we go to configuration, and then we go to outputs right there. And you can see these outputs. They come pre-filled in, but we don't really want to use them. So what I'm going to do is simply get rid of them. And you do that by just selecting nothing in each spot. So I'm going to go come on. And blank them all out. Okay, now that those are empty, you can see how this is divided into outputs 1 through 8 and 9 through 16. So I'm going to just use my sheet here, and the headlights are output 1. So I'm going to just click the down arrow and go to, we'll use high beam headlight. Output 2 is fog lights on my list. Front fog light. Output 3, I've got down running lights. Output 4, I've got right turn signal. Indicator right. Output 5 is left turn signal. Indicator left. Output 6, I've got my dash lights. I don't know that they have one named dash lights, and they don't have one named interior lights, but that's okay. You don't need to put a lettering in there, as long as we know output 6 and output 7 are those. When we get to the programming, it works, and I'll show you. Output 9 is our reverse lights, our backup lights. Reversing light. Output 10 is our tail lights. So we're going to go combined rear light. Output 11 is our right turn, again, indicator right. And output 12 is indicator left. Now, I want to point something out here. I've got the turn signals up here and down here, because if you remember, when I wired these plugs, I took all the wiring from the back and put it in here, and all the wiring from the front and put it in here. Now, I could have wired the indicators together, leaving me a couple of empty slots here, but I did it this way just because it was easy for me to hook up. And on a lot of times on the trucks, when I want to be able to unplug the cab, say on a globe liner or a king hauler, I want to lift off the cab and unplug that plug. Well, I can't wire the lights together from the back and the front if I want to be able to lift the cab up in one piece. So that's why I wire them that way. So there's our lights, and so now we're ready to set those up. All right, time to assign those now to a prop channel. So what I've got here is the setup sheet for the radio, and I have channel 2 right gimbal up and down used for lights. So that is this. Okay, and I'm suggesting on here to assign that to prop 3. So what I'm going to do is go down here to prop 3, or to the S bus, and prop 3 is going to be channel 2. Okay, so now what I've done is assigned this to prop 3. So now I can go over here to the prop channels, go to prop 3, and now I can pick out where I want to turn my lights on. So we have a short in position and long in position. So short in position would be, if you hold this up for just like that, it'll turn the lights on. Long in position, you have to hold it up for 3 seconds. So if I have short in position, we can go over here and we can click high beam headlights. And down here at the bottom, we'll click fog lights. Okay, so now we should turn on our headlights and our fog lights. So let's go ahead and load that onto the truck and see what happened. So I've got to plug in some power to the truck, which I will do. The system has to be powered up. And I'll click transfer project data. Notice the lights on the, well, let's see, you can't see that. I'm going to zoom this camera out. Okay, zoom the camera out. You can see the truck. The daytime running lights are on. So now when I move this up, it turns the headlights on, down, turns on the fog lights, or I can turn them back off. Okay, the next thing I want to do is make these daytime running lights switchable. So we'll go back to the computer and do that. So to make our running lights switchable, I'm going to go back here to outputs. You can see I have daytime running lights in spot number 3. I'm going to change that to, well, I'm just going to change it to blank. Okay. And then we're going to go back to the prop channels and we're going to put output 3 right here. Okay. And then transfer the data. So what will happen now is the short 1 second will turn on the headlights, and long will turn on the running lights, and then down will turn on the fog lights. So we'll test that. I'll zoom the camera back out. Okay, so now if I hold this up for 3 seconds, we'll get our running lights on. Hold it up for 3 seconds again. Turn them off. Headlights, fog lights, daytime running lights. Now, these things are really bright. We used high intensity LEDs in them, so that's going to really look good at night. And we should have, let's see here. Yeah, oh, there's our hazards. Oh, I haven't turned on the, yeah. So, okay. Our hazards automatically come on when you go into reverse. And we can set that. And our turn signals are not working because I haven't actually set those up yet. So we'll do the turn signals next. In order to get the indicators to work, we have to go to the Output Options tab and click Automatic Indicator Lights While Turning and American Indicator Mode. And then we'll transfer that again, and while we're doing that, I will zoom back out. Okay, so we're zoomed back out, and now still have my lights on and off, and my turn signals. Now, here's a little anomaly that I've discovered with Beier. I'm making a right turn, but my left turn signal is going off. So they have actually got those labeled backwards, according to my way of thinking, and the US way of thinking. So the way to fix that is, it's very simple, no wiring involved, but we want to change those. So here's how you do that. I'll go back to the zoom in. Okay, back to our program. We'll go back to the Outputs tab, and we'll simply take the right and left and reverse those. So we're going to put indicator right up on top, and indicator left on the bottom. Indicator left on top, and indicator right on the bottom. And we have to do the same thing for the rear lights. So left on top, and right on the bottom, and then transfer the data. So I'll zoom back out. So we'll test that out. So now I turn right turn, left turn, yay. Headlights, fog lights, running lights, nice. Hazards, if I just back up, the hazards come on. And I'll probably also put those on a switch, and I'll show you how to do that. So that basically took care of our front lights. So now it's time for the cab lights. So what I want to do with the cab lights is I want to put those on this stick, left and right. So, you know, dash lights will be one way and interior lights will be the other way. So I will zoom back in and we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so to do our cab lights, we already decided that those are output 6 and output 7. So that's no problem. So we need to set up a prop channel for that. And if we go, actually we'll go to S-Bus first. We'll see the first prop channel that's available is prop 4. So we'll use the drop down arrow. And we can see that the left gimbal side to side is channel 4. So we'll assign that to channel 4. So that's this one. And now we'll go back to outputs. 6 and 7. Okay, so we'll go to prop channels. We'll go to prop 4. And we'll put 6 right there, output 6 and output 7 right here. Okay, so now this should turn on lights and this should turn on lights. So we'll go ahead and transfer the project data, and I'll zoom out. We transferred all that, so now we'll watch here. You can see the cab interior lights go off and on, and that's the dash lights. They are working. You can't see them from where you are, but they work fine. My other lights still work. So everything is now operating on a separate switch. So now what we want to do is switch over to the back end and get all the tail lights organized, and then we'll do some additional sounds. We'll do the horns and we'll do music. Alright, we got our truck turned around. We're looking at the back end, so let's see what's working. Well, our turn signals are working just fine. The brake lights are obviously on. Now I have them set to be on when the truck is stopped. When you go forward, they'll come off. And when we go into reverse, the backup lights come on and the hazard lights come on. Okay, first thing I want to do is I want the hazard lights not to come on when I back up. And we'll set that, and then we're going to adjust these rear lights so that when you're going forward they're on dimly, and when you stop they come on brightly. And that's the combined light feature, and I'll show you how to set that up, and then we'll be in pretty good shape. So I'm going to zoom back in. Alright, we're going to start with the hazard lights. So we're going to go to outputs, we're going to go output options, and there's a tab here, hazard lights automatically on when reversing. We're going to click that off. Then we're going to go back to prop channels, and we're going back to prop channel 4, which if you remember is this one right here. And we're going to put the hazard lights, let's see here, hazard lights right there, on long in position. So that turns on the cab lights. Holding it over for 3 seconds will turn the hazard lights on. And that's going to be a much neater setup for the way I like to run the truck. So we will transfer the project. Well, I'm not going to transfer it yet. The second thing we want to do is do the combined rear lights. Well, I'll go ahead and transfer this and test it. Alright, we've got that transferred. So now when we go in reverse, we don't have hazard lights. We just have our reverse lights. Notice how the brake lights go off when you're going forward or reverse. And if we want to turn on our hazard lights, we hold this over for 3 seconds and the hazard lights will come on. Now I actually want to go that direction to do them. I'll show you how to change that. So here on the screen you should be able to see this. We'll just put it on the other direction. So we'll click not used, and then we'll put the hazard lights down in this end and transfer it, and that means that going this way will turn on the hazard lights, which 1 second turns on the dome lights and then 3 seconds turns on the hazard lights. Just a little easier for me to remember when I'm running the truck. We'll just see if that made the change. Okay, so now 3 seconds this way, hazard lights come on. There we go, 3 seconds this way, hazard lights come off. Ooh, looking good. So I want to show off the combined rear light function. So what I've done here is on prop channel, I clicked rear fog light on prop channel 4. So that means 3 seconds over we'll turn on the rear fog lights. Now there's two different settings. There's rear fog lights and there's let's see here, parking light. Okay, so if you use parking light, what it'll do is turn on both the turn signal and the rear light. And if you use fog light, it only turns on the rear light. So see how that's a dual level? So we go forward, we still have lights, and when we stop, we have brake lights. I can turn that off by moving this over for 3 seconds, and now I'll just have brake lights. So that would be like daytime, and then I can move this over, it'll get brighter, and now I'll have forward and brake, and then of course reverse. So if you want both the turn signal and the brake light to come on, you use the parking light. If you want just the brake light to come on, you use rear fog light. Now on the outputs, I know this might be a little harder to see, it says here combined rear light, and you see there's an intensity. I have it set to 0 there, and then 60 and 20, and you can adjust those to adjust the brightness of the brake light and the forward light. I think I've got a pretty good balance right now, forward and brake, and reverse and brake. But you can play with those settings to see what you like. So now I've got everything set up. I've got my turn signals, okay, forward brake. I can turn on my hazard lights if I hold this over for 3 seconds. And of course I have all my, and turn it back off, and then I have all my front end lights. So that's basically, I'm happy with my lighting. Now obviously on a more complicated truck you could do more running lights or anything you want, and you can make these lights flash or do anything else, but for the purposes of this truck we're pretty good. Now what I want to do is finish up my sounds. I have engine sound, but what I want are horns and music, so I'm going to go through that. Before I move away from the lighting, I just want to show one other effect. And that is this effect right here, light flickering when starting and light bulb effect. So I have that set to heavy or light, and you can set it to anything you want from off, light, medium, heavy. We're going to leave it heavy. And the same thing with the light effect. And what that does is we'll turn the lights on, turn on the running lights, we'll turn on the interior lights. Okay, now when I start the engine, you'll see the lights flicker. And of course, once the engine's running, the lights settle down. You can do anything from a light effect to a heavy effect, or completely off. I kind of like it. I think it looks really cool. The back lights also flash. And so that's a lighting effect that you can set pretty easily. Doesn't matter how the lights are hooked up. Okay, let's take a look at the sounds now. Okay, well let's start with the horn sounds. So on this radio, they have these cool little knobs up here. They're fully proportional, one on each side. And so that means you can use them just like a proportional stick here. And so what I'm going to set is a horn sound here and here, and then hold it for 3 seconds for a different horn sound, and hold it for 3 seconds down for a different horn sound. On this side, I'm going to set up to turn on the music, up to turn it off, and down to switch to the next track. So we'll start with the horn sounds. So on my setup sheet here, I see that there's a little etched VRD. So VRD is the right-hand rotary switch, and we're going to assign it to prop 8. So we'll go to the S bus, and prop 8 is going to be VRD, which is channel 8. Okay, and then VRC is the left-hand rotary, and we're going to assign that to prop 7, and that's channel 7. Okay, so now we have those props assigned. So prop 8 is our horns. So now we can just click a down arrow, short in position. We have a bunch of sounds here. So we're going to take this sound here for a horn, and we're going to click OK, and we're going to click this sound here for a horn and click OK, and then transfer the project data. Our truck is still sitting here. I don't actually need to switch to it because you don't need to see a sound, you can just hear it. So once this is updated, okay, so you push it up, I don't really want that long sound. Okay, so I can play with those horn sounds. Now, a way to do that is to go to the up here to the additional sounds, and you've got all these horn sounds in here, and you can test them by just pressing the arrow afterwards. So additional sound 1 is a stop, and that's horn 02. So that's additional sound. So let's go back here to the configuration, prop channels, and we'll go this one and click OK and transfer it. And we can just play with the different horn sounds to see what they sound like. And once you get the horn sounds the way you want them, let's just transfer that and see what it sounds like. It's still on a loop. So I'm going to play with these for a little bit and come up with a couple different sounds. Now also, if I go back to this additional sounds, there's a bunch of sounds in here we don't need, and there's some empty spaces. So I happen to have a Coca-Cola horn sound, and since this is a Coca-Cola truck, I'm going to drop that in here. You do that by just opening the file folder, and then I'll go down and find my sound and then load it in. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll be back. Well, I found a horn sound I liked, horn 01. So yeah, that sounds good. Now I want to put the Coca-Cola horn sound here, so I'm going to show you exactly how I do that. I go to the additional sounds, and we'll put it here under additional sound 17. So we're going to open up this, and we're going to go to, okay, we're going to go to my Beier files, Bob's custom sounds. Okay, so we've got two custom, whoops, touchscreen computer, Bob's custom sounds. We've got the Coca-Cola happiness jingle. Okay, and that's what we're going to put in there under 17. And then we're going to go back to configuration, and we're going to go Coca-Cola happiness jingle and click OK, and then transfer the project data. Now that should give us the Coca-Cola horn sound, which is a sound that I made. And you can see it takes a little longer to do sounds because some of these sound files are pretty big. Later we're going to put a Coca-Cola song on here, and that takes forever to transfer. So we'll look at this one here, transfer it and see what it sounds like. Okay, so up is our horn, and down now we can make that sound louder by going back to additional sounds here and changing this to like 150% probably. And transfer the data, and that'll make it louder. And actually, while we're in here, one of the things I also wanted to do is the backing beeper sound was really loud. So I'll show you how to change that. It's going to take a second for this to transfer. And you do it the same way. There's all kinds of customization available for all these sounds. Okay, so we'll go to engine sound, and we've got our reverse warning is right here. And of course it's in German. We're just going to go across here, and we're going to click it to say 50%. Whoop, not 560, 50. Okay, and we'll transfer that. And so that'll reduce the backing beeper sound too. So we'll let those transfer and we'll double check everything, and then we'll move on to this music. So to add music, it's basically like adding random sounds, except we go to the wave player. Alright, wave player, we're going to open a file. We're going to go to Bob's Custom Sounds, and here we've got I'd Like to Buy the World a Coke. I remember that song. Okay, and that's going to dump it into the wave player. And this is going to turn it on and off, and this is going to go to the next track. So now we have to transfer it. Transfer project data, and it's going to take 4 minutes roughly, because it's a song. It takes more time to download it. So we're going to let that download. We'll come back and test it out. I'd like to buy the world of Coke. That finished transferring, so this should turn it on. I'd like to buy. And that turns it off. I can't play it for very long because for copyright issues on YouTube, but the whole song is there. It sounds beautiful. So now we've got our horns, our music, engine. So all of our sounds. One final little thing to do before I button it back up is to, one little thing on the radio that's kind of cool. I'll show you. I just love this radio. It's now my very favorite for Beier stuff. So if we go to the menu, we'll go to the transmitter set. We'll go down here to System Settings, and we'll scroll down here to LED color and change it to red, and change it to 100% brightness. Now we've got, since it's a red truck, may as well have the transmitter light up in red. Okay, we're going to tie up some wiring now. I soldered my motor wires, and then I just cut a piece of wood here and screwed it into a couple of mounting bosses. This has got a heat sink on the bottom, so I need to keep the heat sink up, so I will just double sticky tape it here. I can tuck all my wiring in, and then the wiring is all done. Now, because this sticks up, I can't use Tamiya gives you this floor plate. It's made out of just a sheet of plastic, and if you put sticky tape on these to hold it down, I could cut a hole in this and use it, but I'm going to do something different. I'm thinking I'm going to put a bulkhead here, just so you can't see past it. You can easily get to it by lifting the top off if you need to program it. But I want to come up with a method to carry a couple cans of Coke in the back. I just think having a Coke delivery rig would be pretty cool. So I'm going to build something to hold those back here, and we'll see how that comes out. Alright, as promised earlier in the video, I told you I'd come back when the truck was finished and just kind of do a little fly through. So this is the Mercedes 1850L that we put the SFR-1 in, and there's our Flysky ST8 radio. This is just a great combination. I'm using this radio from now on in all my SFR and USM installations where I'm not using a PL18 EV. So if you're looking for the best radio for your SFR, this Flysky radio is it. Kind of hard to get right now. Flysky's continuing to work on production, but I'll have them eventually, so just keep an eye out for those. Okay, here's the truck. So we've got, as we mentioned, we've got our lighting effects. So we've got our headlights, our fog lights. 3 seconds gives us daytime running lights. Okay, flip it over here, we get our cab lights, and flip it over here and that gives us the dash lights. We've got our flickering effect when we turn on the engine. And that effect can be adjusted from nothing to super heavy. We've kind of got it in the middle of the road. We've got our horn, and we've got our coke horn, and then we've got over here for 3 seconds gives us our hazard lights. 3 seconds again. I'll turn that off. And we go over this direction for 3 seconds, and that turns on our tail lights. Also, we've got music. I can't play the music for very long for copyright reasons. And then pulling it down gives us the track advance if we want to add additional sounds. We'll go around to the back here, and you can see there's our brake lights, which are always on when we're stopped. When we go forward, you'll notice they get dimmer, and just our tail lights are on. Obviously, we have our turn signals left and right. And when we go in reverse, we have our backup lights. And if I hold this over for 3 seconds, now when we go forward, there's no lights. So we can either have it with running lights and brighter brake lights or tail lights. Also, just a cool little feature on this truck, if you're just watching the truck video for the first time, I've got a little holder in there that holds a couple of cans of Coke. So it is truly a delivery truck. So anyway, there's the SFR-1 installation in a truck. Oh, one other little thing, just show this off real quick. I showed it in the other video, is just how amazing the low speed control is on this unit. Just super beautiful. I mean, you got creepy low speed, which is really nice. The SFR-1 has just a superior speed control built into it. So anyway, there you go. SFR-1 with the ST8 radio. Super great package. You can do a lot more with it than I've done here, but this kind of scratches the surface. Sounds spectacular. This radio works great. Give me a thumbs up on the video. Those help me with the YouTube rankings. And I really appreciate you guys watching. If you've got SFR-1 questions, you can ask them in the video comments, or you can email me or hit up the Tamiya Truck Open Studio on Facebook. So there you go. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.